Okay, let's look at question 11 to 15. Um, so what we fundamentally have here is a scenario where we're going in. It's an ethical question. It's a question on ethics, isn't it? Ethics threat. When I say ethics, principles, threats, and safeguards. Really, that's kind of the point here with these. So that's where we're going. So this is actually a good question because it does help us tease out and understand how the examiner wants us to think about this. Um, but I can imagine we would all slightly differ on some of their answers in reality. Right. So in the first paragraph, they tell us what they do, certain issues. So first of all, they're asking you to eat take as much chips and pretzels as you want. It is food. Minor, these are minor snacks. And they are left freely around for any visitors on site. So I'm sure you might have generally, even in any space, you sometimes go into a place and you have tasties that you can just take and eat. So to what extent that can really affect your judgment is an interesting one. Um, the then the FD used to work with you. Um, and has gone from your firm. And in fact, she was previously the audit manager as well. So that's the real issue here. Um, so she's still settling into the role. She's saying, "Don't disturb me by excessive questions." She's asked for a brief meeting during the week, and um, and then you're the only one allowed to ask her questions. A bit strange, but that's the whole point. The question is rather skewed to get you thinking about how you would react, how you would manage this issue, because it may not be as stark as this, but there are potentially close enough issues where you don't disturb FDs or you won't have the opportunity to even catch them all the time. Okay, great. So they also want some advisory on best practice because they wish to become to list. Now, the issue straight away, as you can see here, first of all, is they have an audit committee. I can talk about this. This is a good technical point here. The audit committee with the FD on it, that should never happen. You should never have the FD on your audit. It's meant to be, it's an independent committee. So you have independence, one with some finance specialism. You shouldn't be having the FD because we're going to be talking about the FD. And the other two non-executive directors are not truly independent because they just only retired from the business. So they are not truly independent. They should be independent, especially as the company doesn't have an internal audit function. So that's an issue. And they've also asked for this compliance in terms of internal control, which leads us straight away that if they're asking for advice, we're going to be helping them lay their internal control or advisory on it, as well as reviewing it. So we have issues there as well. Okay, right. This one was an interesting one. Gifts can be accepted. This is true. Gifts can be. Um, this one, I imagine many of you are scratching your heads. Some of you probably vying on, could it be seen as a bribe? Could it not? Let's look at the third one. The offer should be always referred to. Generally, we have something referred to as a gift register. So all gifts should be registered just because for completeness, um, for fairness, for investigation, for quality control. I think it's important to highlight that. Um, Personally, maybe because of experience, I know this is not severe enough. Anything that anyone else can have, so anything that any other member of staff has access to, um, can't be seen as a bribe. It's only if there's some sort of special nature to it. So you must think about the context. That's important. If members of an organization regularly have tickets to go and see Manchester United, I don't know why you want to do that. Then, and if you offer those tickets, that's not seen as a bribe. If that was very regular and those tickets were always available, right? So personally, I would go with A here, 1 and 3. 1 and 3 here. But I sympathize with anyone who picked all three. I can see you thinking. So the answer is A. 11 is A. Yes, 11 is A. Right, so FD here, she's just been recruited into our firm. So she used to know she's been recruited from our firm, so she now works for the opposition. We are the ones doing the work. So it's really the case that we're going to turn up, we're going to go, hey, Margaret, how are you? So familiarity is the threat. There is a threat. Remember, the whole idea is that we have our principles, then there are threats to them, and then we must think of safeguards to prevent these threats or to think of ways of managing these threats. Then it says here that the audit team can help themselves to as many packets of pretzels. So generally, the argument here is that, well, yeah, I suppose in some extent, self issue of self-interest because you maybe you like pretzels and you're eating as much as you want. She said, "Don't disturb me." That just feels like an attack on your person. So that's intimidation. And they've asked for advice on best practice and internal control. So any advisory you give them, you're going to be reviewing it. So there's a threat to the potential threat of self review, and you want to avoid that. And you want to avoid that. Yes. Right. Self review. Let's see what happens here. Which of the following best describes the action that no one to ask questions during a weekly meeting? It is a bit harsh. It is a bit harsh. But again, it's about the process. So this just describes what you should take now. So you don't start resigning because of this. So this doesn't work. We just don't resign. Maybe in the long run for if she refuses to do other things, but no, refuse the request. Well, that is leading to confrontation, so that's not quite. It's a bit harsh. So these two were quite, for me, they felt a bit harsh here. Now the problem I think here, personally, two things. Um, this audit committee is a bit flawed actually because the FD is on the audit committee with two non-executive directors, so they're not even truly independent. That's the first thing. Um, when I looked at this, I asked the finance director if urgent can be made. So you're looking for a solution. This felt the best, best describes. This felt the best thing to do. After this, of course, then I don't know, submit your claim to this and hope the other non-execs might work with you. But C is your best answer here, I feel. A and B are last resort, right? So the answer here is C. 13 is C. Right, which three of the following comply with the corporate governance? This is a technical question. You might not have known this, but hopefully you would have picked up that all these organizations, if you're listing, you need to have an audit committee, you must have a nomination, and you must have a remuneration. I did highlight in class a lot of the time that audit committees can do the work of risk assessment. The bigger the organization, then they can have an independent risk assessment. But this is not required as far as the corporate governance best practice is. But this is, like I say, a technical question. So now you know that the risk committee is not required. It's possible that you may find them, but it's not required because the audit committee can do a lot of that work as well. You might recall me harking on about that, right? And so the answers are B, D, and E. Yeah. And finally, which of the following are true with regards the audit committee? So the two non-executives should not be yes because they are just too close to the business. They were ex-directors. The finance director should not. That's correct. Yes, at least two non-executive. Yes, that's correct. If you like, because we want independence. The finance director cannot be a member. Just cannot be a member at all. Full stop. So 1, 2, 3. Yes, so your answer here is C. Okay, great stuff. And that's those questions.